We're live. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Todd.
How you doing, man?
I am doing well and excited to talk to you today
Do you know what we're talking
about
about?
we're talking about vision and strategy
Vision and strategy.
on today's episode of the Leaders Cafe. Welcome to the Leaders Cafe, where leaders discuss the latest trends and issues in leadership, team building, and the future of organizations. Each week, we'll bring you engaging conversations with successful leaders who will share their insights, experiences, and strategies for creating effective teams, navigating change, and driving innovation. So sit back, relax, and join us for a virtual cup of coffee at the Leaders Cafe.
Good morning, good afternoon, and depending on where you're at. And it's always a time to drink a cup of coffee as far as I'm concerned. So what are you drinking today, Brian?
Todd, I was actually going to ask, does a virtual cup of coffee ever run dry?
Ooh, that's a philosophical question.
And not only am I drinking some Dunkin' Donuts coffee, I decided it'd be a good idea to spill it all over me and my desk.
Well, it smells good, so
it needs to be caffeinated as well.
Yeah, I'm drinking Lavazza.
Lavazza.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Lavazza.
Oh man, Lavazza is a delicious cup of coffee. It's Italian blend. And I first was turned on to Lavazza at a restaurant near me called Taps, and it's a fish house, brew house type place. It's a real awesome place, and so that's where I got turned on to it. I've been drinking Lavazza ever since.
Did you see my post? I believe it was over the weekend. I drank my last cup of Luwak coffee my daughter brought back from Fiji. She brought me back a bag of beans of Luwak.
What is Luwak?
It's the coffee that is eaten by the Luwak cat. They eat the beans and they can't process them, but the enzymes in their digestive tract supposedly tweak the flavor of it, and then they poop them out. And then people go collect this, rinse them off, they roast them, and I drank it.
So I always have to ask the question, like, who is the desperate person who wanted coffee so bad? They're like, I'm going to drink poop coffee.
Dude, honestly, it was probably when dumb Americans started visiting Fiji, and they're like, I know what we can do to make money. $60 a pound.
I was gonna say, it's the most expensive coffee in the world. Well, congratulations on that. And
dude, it was disappointing. It was my last cup.
Well, we're not here to talk about coffee, although this is the Leaders Cafe. We were talking about the other side of the cafe about leadership, and we're going to get into vision and strategy. And so I titled this one, The Blueprint of Success, Mastering the Art of Visionary Leadership. And, I think that's the key to it. I said, I think leadership, again, is less of a science, even though you have people writing tons of books about it, and really more of an art of how do you work with groups of people and how do people decide to follow you. And I think of the fact that when we look at people who we think are interesting, that we want to follow, that we want to listen to, and I know there's one person I can't speak about today, so I won't, but you start thinking about people who have vision, and you're ready to follow them because they have that vision and they lay it out for you. But it's I don't think it's that easy just going, oh, he's a visionary. And I want to start with that question, Brian. Like, what does it mean to be a visionary when we think of that? I mean, I know we could pick up and we're going to talk about some of them, visionary leaders, but what does it mean to be a visionary?
It's that person with that long-term desire to propel or grow or inspire, but it's a long-term process.
So Jeff Bezos, for instance, like he was selling books out of his like apartment in Seattle. I think they started off being used books too, if I remember correctly. And just online, right? And no one would thought about. I remember when people were talking about the Amazon when it was a bookstore. I was in college, and people were like, "I'm not going to put my credit card on that on that random website. Now it's, one of the leading generators of money for others than just the people who work for Amazon. So, having that vision to just say, hey, I'm going to start with books. That's going to be my catalyst, but I'm going to get into it, and I want to do other things eventually.
Well, it's my understanding that the vision was laying out the logistical system to deliver products.
Yeah.
He started with books, and look at Amazon now. You can buy a coffin for yourself on Amazon these days.
It's kind of wild. Costco and Amazon, places to buy coffins. But it was that he wasn't looking at becoming a book reseller. Mm-mm. He was looking at becoming a logistics hub.
Right.
So Amazon was more, his idea was logistics more than that. And I think that's interesting that, we go through that vision of what it means to move forward. But why do people get behind someone like a Jeff Bezos?
I think charisma has a lot to do with it. If they're a charismatic speaker, leader, he's selling the vision. He's selling his vision to people, getting them on board, funding his vision. I think his plan was, we're not going to be profitable for 13 years, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't know you were going to speak about Jeff Bezos today, so I'm pulling this off the top of my head. And I'm old and forget things, so don't quote me, please. And that's what I mean about, you and I were like, oh, we should do this. And, it's a 3-month plan. Is that really being visionary? I don't think so. That's going, hey, I've got an idea. Let's build this out. And that idea, I guess, is a micro vision. Hey, I just termed a new coin. Microvision.
Termed a new coin?
I termed a new coin. Microvision.
Beautiful.
I told you, it's early. I'm still drinking coffee.
So as Brian's terming new coins, so is the vision, let me ask this question though, right? Is when we're thinking about like leadership and the visionary leadership, right? And you say someone who has a micro vision, as you call it, is that still leadership though? Because like now I'm pretty much, looking at people who are leading large companies, but does it have to be a large company to be a visionary leader?
No, not at all. And having a vision is just part of it. Everybody can sit and dream. One day I'm going to have X. That's being visionary. But is that leadership? No. That's dreaming, if you will. It becomes vision. It becomes goals. Once those goals and that roadmap is outlined and people understand their role in achieving things to help achieve that vision.
So when we think of visionary leaders, we go into business, right? We always, that's the easy one to grab onto when we're thinking about those. But I mean, obviously the military, which our background is, so we tend to go to military. You have sports people, coaches that, Bill Belichick, for instance, who people think are visionaries as far as how he does his coaching. In the politics, right? You have those political leaders that you think of, you talk about Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or people like that have the vision of the future and want to get to that future. So the visionary doesn't necessarily have to be within a particular organization or particular genre, I suppose, for lack of a better term, sector. It just has to be somebody who has a vision, has an idea, and gets people on board. But this is the second part of that then, is getting people on board. Is that where the strategy comes into play?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand your question correctly. However, the strategy, in my opinion, are those things that are built out to help achieve that vision. It's the goal setting, the project planning, breaking things into tasks, identifying who is going to fill what roles to achieve this vision.
So right, that's exactly what I'm saying. So the idea here is you come up with a vision, right? when I say this, it's not like you're having, peyote or something. All of a sudden, you have like this vision quest that comes onto it, right? You have this idea, something that's driving you, and the visionary is someone who's able to share their idea with others. That's my take
Right.
on it, at least. Right.
And it's typically others that are the leaders that get it accomplished. Right? I mean, Steve Jobs, your favorite individual. People did not like working. You're not. People did not like working directly for him, but he put people in place. It's those people that understand their own idiosyncrasies and understand their weakness, and they put somebody in place that will help them achieve their vision. They're selling their vision to that individual first.
So Steve Jobs' idea
broke the rule. Go ahead.
Because you broke it. Steve Jobs' idea was to be able to, and I'm going to use this term, which is kind of new, but I'll get this. You can talk about this later. To democratize the idea of computers, personal computers, is putting a personal computer in everybody's home, and people thought that was ridiculous at the time. They're like, "You're crazy. No one's going to want a computer in their home to do whatever, right? This is a business machine. It's something that's supposed to be, at a office." And he said, nope, in the future, there's going to be a computer in every home. And we have computers in our pockets now because of him.
Yeah, but his vision went on a little beyond just access to tech. It was building that beautiful piece of tech. The design and technology come together to create an experience, right?
Well, I mean, that's a whole, we could get deeper into Steve Jobs' concept of beauty. It's when you, with him, every part, like he had people sign, their names to the design inside of the phone that you have, and this is an uncrackable phone, right? You can't open this device.
I accept that challenge.
Right. You know what I mean? And so that the idea is that the inside of it has to look beautiful, even though no one's going to see it. That's perfection. That's another side of the thing. But the vision that he had, the thing that people got on board, was, hey, we want to put a computer in everybody's home, right? And I mean, it was so much so that IBM rejected the concept of it, right? They're like, this is a business machine only. And then IBM obviously came on later, and then we have the great PC versus Apple debate all the time. But that's the idea, and it was like people like Steve Jobs that why we are so we can work from home now, right? Because of that concept of what he created back in the 70s and the 80s, right?
Right.
And I think that's but the other side of it though is that's the vision, getting people to buy onto it. But what's the strategy to get there? I think that's why when we brought this up, it was vision and strategy. It wasn't just, I have a vision,
right?
I mean, like, we take a look at JFK when he says that I want to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That was his vision, or at least the vision he bought into from somebody, if it was not his. We'll give him credit for it. But so his vision is, I want to put somebody on the moon by the end of the decade. And well, in 1969 it happened, right? So he put the strategy in motion was to create NASA, to create a space program that was going to be competitive, if not better than the Soviet space program, all those type of things. So, but people bought into that concept.
It's interesting. You're causing me to reflect back, and I don't know if you had the same experience with the units you served with in the military. The majority of our boot lieutenants their vision for their platoon was to make them strong, fast, and lethal. And then we were introduced to a lieutenant who had a completely different vision than every other junior officer we served under. And that was to make us smart. And he made us do, we called them book reports. He called them battle skills studies, but monthly we had to research, review, and write a paper and then present it to the entire platoon on a battle and what strategies worked, what strategies didn't, and just lay that out. So he wanted us to be thinkers on an individual level, not just strong and fast to do the job. He wanted us to do the job more efficiently.
Well, there's the movie where soldiers, we were young once and soldiers. I always butcher that movie with Mel Gibson about the first battle with the North Vietnamese in Vietnam. They show these young lieutenants, going through training. There's one kid's like, yelling at his troops and get up there, and the other guy was more like the lieutenant you're speaking about, and caring about his troops, and Mel Gibson's character, looks at the first sergeant and says, well, that guy wants to be a hero, pointing at the guy who's yelling at his troops. He goes, but this guy's a leader. Right. And showing those things. So I think, that's the other side of it too, is like leadership. When we look at the visionary leader, it is about leadership first, right? It's about getting people on board with your idea, but also nurturing that idea with the people who you're working with. Right. There and I've said this before, there are leaders who, I would double check everything they told me. And there are other guys who I would walk into a burning paper bag.
Absolutely.
Because he told me to. Because I knew that he had my best interest at heart.
Since we're already on the topic of military, General Patton, World War II. I was actually going to quote him, and I think I'm not going to. What I'll do is I'll put a link in the show notes. And basically because some of the language wouldn't be acceptable to today's terms. In the military, we demonize and come up with a lot of slang terms for the enemy we're fighting to dehumanize them, to help those deal with the acts that they're doing. But he wanted and was vocal about, once we've got Germany, let's go invade and take over Russia. And I'll paraphrase, he understood the American opinion of Russians that they were European. His belief was, no, they're Asiatic. Therefore, they think, act like the countries in Asia, and that they need to take care of that problem now, or they're going to rise up and become a problem in the future. And it's the end of the war. They were weaker. In his opinion, there was no better opportune time than to do it. And we didn't. And then we entered the Cold War.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Patton was an interesting guy. He did things his own way for sure. And either his troops either loved him or hated him. I don't think there was anything in between with him. And I think that if he told his troops that we're going to continue the war for another few years, it would be they would do it, even though the country was, just getting off of 4 years or 5 years of constant war. It's a whole different world. But with that, kind of putting this into play here. So we talked about the foundation of visionary leadership, and then now we're getting into, we talked a little bit about, the strategy to get in there. And one of the things that you love to talk about, and one of your favorite subjects is goal setting. So talk about goal setting and the concept of leadership.
I think people have a hard time discerning from a task, a project, and a goal. And I've talked to a lot of people who have a plan to accomplish something, but nothing's written in paper. Everything is upstairs. And I try to advise them that is not a plan, that's a dream. If you don't have actionable items with time stamps on them, this needs to be accomplished this date, this time, I have this date, this time to work on this piece and move it along, it typically never gets accomplished because it's just a dream. And it's not just goal setting. I mean, everybody's seen the SMART goal, and they have smart goal worksheets, and they don't use them. They're like, oh, my goal is to X. And they don't break that goal down. They don't understand milestones. They don't create projects. They don't apply tasks to it. Therefore, goals don't get achieved. It remains a dream in their head. And I love the planning aspect of it. I love to sit back and say, okay, I want to achieve this. What do I need to do to achieve this? And I just start brain dumping things. And then those things get organized. Well, these are all related. So let's put that into a project because there's several of them. Or this is kind of a standalone task. Let's just leave that a task. It doesn't need to be part of a project to get lost. And then plugging the right people into the right tasks or jobs to get done to help achieve them, accomplish projects, and eventually accomplishing goals. And I encourage everybody to write it down, and don't write it in a notebook, close it and set that notebook aside. It needs to be in your face. It needs to be visible. When you're planning out a project, you need to calendar time to do the tasks that you've said need to get done to accomplish the goal you want to set. And then we peel that onion back a little more, and a lot of people don't understand how their flipping calendar works, whether it's Mac or PC or iOS on their phone, and things don't get moved down the road. You know, I'm actually marking up, I'm taking a stab at writing a book, and it's nothing to do with this show or leadership. However, it's a lot of flipping work. And if you're like, I want to write a book on X, okay, break down that table of contents, assign each chapter, section, amount of time. How much time is it going to take for you to accomplish this? Calendar that time. Cover art. You know, you can hire an artist on Fiverr to start working on cover art while you're still writing the book. And now you're handling two things at once. But a book is never going to get written if you don't build out a project and calendar time to do it. Todd, not to pick on you, how long has writing a book been on your to-do list? Okay, we're going to take it back because it's not on your to-do list, is it?
Yes.
Yes, what?
No, I know what you're saying. Yes, it's been, I've been, just to everybody let you know that I've started in spurts and sparts on a book, and it's being written. It's there.
Okay, and how long ago did it start?
Years.
Yeah, because it's not calendared. You want this thing. You have the vision to have this tangible thing, but you've got no strategy to achieve it.
So let's talk about a couple strategies that I think are interesting, and some I do employ. They use I've started to, at least probably about a year ago, using block time management, like how Elon Musk does it. One of my problems that I do, and we talk about this, is a whole different story, is I go between electronic and then paper, and sometimes I'm like into paper for a while, and I'm like, okay, this is electronic is better. And I know you and I talked about the idea of pick a strategy and stick with it, right? And there's all sorts of tools out there, and so Brian and I are now using this one tool that Brian turned me on to, and it's funny because I use it, and then Brian just uses it to the max. But when you take a look at this idea of time management with that strategy, and the reason why I bring this up here is because it's part of the visionary leadership, and it's a strategy. And so I'm going to do this first, and then we'll get back to time management. So there's 5 attributes to a visionary leader. 1, to be future oriented. That makes sense, right? The other one is strategy and focused. And I think this is where when you take a look at strategy and focused, That's when you get into the um, uh, using those time blocks, using that time management, the focus portion of it. And I think that's where the strategic leaders, I'm sorry, the visionary leaders do way better when they have that strategy of being focused and getting their team to be focused. Comment.
I'm sorry. Yes, but I want to go back to, you talked about a new tool, paper, digital, and I think the average person spends more time debating what time management system to use rather than using one of the time management systems that comes with the device they purchased. It's all there. And yes, I heavily use Notion for personal and private projects, personal projects, for business projects. And it took me a while to find that all-encompassing tool. And this one tool has allowed me to get rid of other tools. But everybody wants that new shiny light. You can't go through social media these days without seeing some new time management tool, or nowadays AI appointment scheduling.
Right.
If it's a post-it note on the wall, if it's 500 post-it notes on the wall and that works for you, work it. Don't look for the new shiny light. And you need to remember something else. If you're working with a team, try not to introduce new software to them to manage this project that they're now working on, because now they have to learn the software and do the work. And that was a problem I had in the beginning when I started onboarding people. Was I was chasing the shiny lights, and I had to stop and reflect. I need to pace implementing new tools because I was overwhelming the staff and they weren't getting their work done. And that was 100% a leadership fail on my part. As soon as it was recognized, it was corrected. But that being said, the strategy I deployed to accomplish new tasks was, I don't want to see a failure because we're still in those tools, but I had to scale way back on implementing them and slowly introduce them to these collaborative tools to accomplish missions. So don't chase the shiny light. I know I'm getting off topic, Todd, but use what you have. If paper works for you, awesome. But if you don't open that book every single day and take a look at it and move tasks from one day to the next that were not accomplished. And, one of my favorite things to do is, how many times have I moved this task forward? I've had tasks I've moved forward for 3 months. It's obviously not important. Nobody's dying because it's not getting done. Do I really need to do this? No. Let's just get rid of it. It was a good thought, 3 months ago, but it's obviously not important. So we can get rid of it. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
So get back on task, and the idea of time management using time block management, like Elon Musk does, or like, and again, it's whatever tool works for you. I agree with you there, but when we look at this, like, why is the time management side of it is just as critical, maybe even more so than picking tasks and goals?
It's the one thing you can never get back. 10 minutes spent on TikTok is 10 minutes not moving anything forward. And I think I think a lot of people don't like time management because it spotlights how inefficient they are or can be or are being. And nobody wants to take a deep internal look at themselves and where they may be falling short. But great leaders do. Todd, you and I, we do a lot of stuff together. And after every single thing we do, we critique. And sometimes we say things the other person doesn't want to hear. And Todd makes me cry. But it's vital. It's important to get better, to find our weakness and to improve upon it. And time management is just that. I know what I'm going to do from day to day. I calendar everything. unless it's I'm not sure if I'm going to have revenue generating work between this time. So I'm just going to put a block in here. And if it doesn't become revenue generating, I'll focus my time and attention on whatever project I want to focus my time and attention on outside of its blocked time.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts? Why do you think people are so adverse to holding themselves accountable for every 15-minute block in their day?
Well, I mean, that's a really deep question. And I mean this sincerely. I don't mean it as a blow off like kind of answer, because we don't. You and I've talked about. We're gonna go. This is a really crazy deep conversation. So you and I've talked about the education system that we have here in the United States, and there's a really looking at why our education system is the way it is, and if it goes back to the Prussian model of education, where they're creating at the public side, creating people who could work well within the factory setting. And then you had the other side of it, which was the prep schools, which were creating people to be leaders. And so, which created people from a lot of the prep schools and the Ivy League schools and so forth and so on. So there's a whole long thing we could talk about. But that being said, we don't teach time management in school, right? And so, well, a lot of schools don't. I shouldn't say that not every school. I don't want to broad brush this, but the majority of schools, I mean, even if you get homework or whatever, there's no, and even if you're going from period to period, there's no time management associated with it. And they just go, okay, here's your, stack of homework you got to do, have it turned in by tomorrow. And whether you do, and whether you do it or not, you might get a lower grade or whatever, but you're not teaching time management. You're teaching that there's tasks to be done and then you have responsibilities, but you're not teaching people how to do it properly. And so I think that's step number one. I do.
Can I jump in there really quick?
Yeah.
Our education system, and back to the factory worker, right?
Yeah.
We're not teaching time management. We're teaching factory school bell management. Yes. Bell rings, I need to go do this. Bell rings, I need to go do this. And yeah, I think we're doing our students a disservice. Todd, I've been running interns from Cal State Fullerton, and it amazes me that, and again, I guess I take them for granted, and I've been doing them for so long, it's just life for me, that how many don't understand time management, how many don't know understand. Wow, I'm having a rough day. Don't understand projects and timelines because it's not taught. And I now have to say, this is a Gantt chart. This is why we use a Gantt chart. And as long as everybody does their piece in a timely manner, we get to move this chart forward.
Yes.
And maybe a conversation for another day, but you and I had a long conversation about state schools versus Ivy League and things that are being taught and not taught. So
it's a full conversation for something not for here, definitely. But I mean, but no, that's the problem, right? Is when we're kind of going back to leadership, when we're picking people with potential to be on our team, right? And everybody who you're interviewing, unless you've known them for many years, it's a potential. And you have to develop them, right? You have to develop them. The other thing too, and this goes into management, not management, but leadership, not management, leadership. Let's get this clear. Is like when we hire somebody, let's say we hire this person, and we go, okay, yeah, I think they're talented. They have this and this and this, and we bring them on board. We still think they're talented, but they're not fitting in specifically at the role that we thought we wanted to have them in. There's two choices you have at this point. Either one is you get rid of that person, say, okay, sorry, you don't work out for us. Or two, you fit them in the position that's going to work the best for them. And I'm going to go back to a sports analogy on this. So when I was coaching lacrosse, we had this tall kid came in, and he got recruited. He on the team, freshman, and they put him in. He wanted to be a midfielder, and tall kid, and he looked like a goof with like with his short stick going down for the ball. But I'm watching him play, and he's got skills, stick handling skills, so he could be a midfielder, right? He's a tall dude, And I was short on defensive men, and I looked over at our head coach, and this kid would probably not see the light of day on the field as a midfielder for at least a year or two. So I looked at the coach, said, "Hey, coach," said, the head coach. I said, "Can I have him on defense?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure," because we need a couple extra defensemen. Got him a long pole. He understood defense. I mean, this is college, so he wasn't like he didn't know what he's doing. Got him in defense, and he actually, as a freshman, started, and then became an All-American defensiveman in lacrosse. And so that's the idea here is going, he is talented, but being in a midfield, he's one of many. He's never probably wouldn't have excelled there. And I saw the skills that I was able to bring him into a position where he was able to excel and be great at his position. And that's what we need. And as Jim Collins says, it's not about having just only the right people on the bus, but people put them in the right seat on the bus, and your organization will succeed. And I know we're getting close here on time, but I kind of just wanted to end on that for my point. So Brian, I'll let you finish it up.
This causes me to reflect on a job I had where I was managing security for a large electronics company. And I'm really big on cross training. Everybody should be able to do everybody's job. And that's just the function. So I took my lowest post and put them with my most senior post and said, train her. And quickly realized that he doesn't really understand how to train an individual to do his job. He can do his job impeccably, but he's assuming they know how to do things that they don't because they've never had the opportunity to do. And that's vital when you're working with a team. Cross training, putting people in the right place. Part of that is also, are they going to be able to excel and grow to where they can be promoted within the organization? Or are you just plugging a hole?
Well, that brings up what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to look at communications and communication skills as a leader. And, just kind of what you're saying right there is you put somebody in to train them, but do they have the right skills? And are you communicating your desires and your needs with them? So, hey, Brian, it was great talking to you.
Likewise.
Before we let you go, what are you consuming this week?
I actually cleared the last podcast in my list this morning, and I'm eagerly awaiting to listen to one of the books, the same book I talked about last week on my way home. So
6 Hats.
6 Hats, yes.
Yeah. All right. On my end, I'm just I'm actually watching some Star Wars with the kids, and we're doing the Ahsoka series. I think it's pretty decent. So that's kind of what I'm consuming for fun.
Cool.
All right. Till next week. See you later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.